Yeah, this is the 78 podcast, an extension of stories from the 78. A little different this time around because I just had a new addition to the family. My wife gave birth to our baby girl basically on Thanksgiving morning. And the first podcast was about the experience over at the hospital, which I've talked to a few more people since that day. You know, we got a lactation specialist because the wife needs to figure out how to better have the baby latch, not for a lack of trying, may I add. But, you know, you go to different things, whatever, and you start hearing about the doctors and the nurses over at said hospital. And a lot of people also feel the same way. They basically, since the pandemic, healthcare, the TLC of healthcare has kind of gone into the crapper, which I'm not surprised, but you know, the pandemic was a couple years ago now, and people are still nasty. And it's funny because if people were that nasty at a restaurant, the Yelp reviews would destroy that restaurant to make them change or what have you. But because it's doctors and nurses and insurance companies, it's way different. And there's still Yelp reviews and stuff like that, but a lot of people don't have a choice. You know, you kind of got to go to the place that gives you the care that's closest to you, that have good, you know, reviews of other things. But it's just strange. Sorry, excuse me here. So I digress. I don't want this whole thing to be about that. But these suspicions have been confirmed, which is interesting. So I made my way out for the first time, starting to shoot some stories for the website, which is storiesfromthe78.com. And you can check out any videos for things in and around Chicago. And that's what the website's designed for. I went out and shot a local startup small business that features like antiques and home decor things, and fantastic woman named Holly. She's great. And her spot was in Edgewater, and fantastic as far as the unique opportunities to buy things that matter to people. You know, they have, like, you remember back in the day, you would have like these big giant punch bowls that your parents would have, your grandparents would have, and they're like made out of that crystal. And you only brought it out for special occasions. She's got like 8 of those right there on the centerpiece of the store. Very cool. She's awesome. And funny and ironically enough, she was in HR before she started doing things on her own. And she also had some of the same views. It's just, things are just different, right? And I hope that things level out as they always do. It's never as bad as it seems, and is never as good as it seems, is what somebody told me once. And that kind of rings true, especially now ahead of, you know, the election and everything else. You know, everybody's on edge and the whole thing. So I decided to get out, start doing things. I did a story over in Little Village. Now, this part of Little Village is controversial in terms of its name. People have called it Little Village for a long time, including the folks at Home Run Inn, who have the headquarters, their OG original pizza place right there on 31st Street in what they call Little Village. Now, when I posted this story a couple years ago, just doing a story about Home Run Inn in general, people were really upset that I did not say it was K-Town, which was something that I wasn't really familiar with. But then I asked my dad, and who is 70 plus years old, who grew up on the southwest side of Chicago in the Garfield Ridge neighborhood. And he's like, "Oh yeah, that's K-Town." So it's just funny how neighborhoods change and how neighborhoods adapt to, you know, real estate agents calling them one thing or what have you. But that, and it's right like next to Berwyn, Cicero, like that's kind of where this neighborhood butts up against. But that is now called Little Village, which doesn't make any sense because Little Village is a little bit further east. And maybe they just say that for people to know, and people don't know K-Town. And the reason why it's called K-Town is because of all the K streets, Costner, Kedzie, so on and so forth. That is old K-Town. Either way, they were giving out 5,000 pizzas. So I thought I'd head out that way to check out, you know, the different restaurants and things like that were out that way, and also check out Home Run Inn Pizza and what they have to offer, because the 5,000 pizzas they were giving away is just kind of what they do. It's who they are, and they are just a really great Chicago company owned by a family, run by the great grandkids or grandkids of the original founders, and they are just wonderful people. And you know, as far as the pizza icons in the city, Sometimes I feel like Home Run Inn doesn't get a lot of love for one reason or another. I don't know. But I mean, yes, they do have a huge frozen pizza line. And maybe that's why, because you see the frozen pizzas everywhere. Maybe a lot of people think the frozen pizzas were first, but Home Run Inn has been around since like the 1940s. And they got their name from being next to a ball field where kids used to play little league, and it was a big factory area back in the day too. And they claim, they do, not me, they claim that they invented the tavern style pizza for the people in the neighborhood to keep them in their bar after they get off of work. They cut the pizzas in little squares so they weren't the big pieces, and they serve it for free in their tavern. And then people loved it so much that they then decided to start selling the pizza to get the beer. It was weird, but that is their thing. And their pizza is like this buttery crust with this tangy sauce. It's a very unique flavor. And I would recommend checking out the original location of Home Run Inn. It's a very classy place. They got kind of the history up on the wall of everything else. And it's just a great Chicago story. And so great that they did it differently. They didn't expand like, Portillo's or Lou Malnati's decided to expand in that aspect. They expanded through the frozen pizza market, getting their pizzas out there across the country because you can control a lot of that. And, and they kind of cornered the frozen pizza market, which was brilliant because during the pandemic, guess what everybody was ordering, right? So, um, nonetheless, it was fun to get out and do a story. I saw my buddy Shawnee, who I haven't seen since, oh man, since like I think my daughter's quinceanera. That was in August, maybe, or maybe we saw him one time before that. We did. We went out to dinner with him. But Shawnee's like one of my best friends, and he's a cameraman over at WGN who kind of taught me everything, along with like Mary Boington and Bill O'Toole. It was like the trifecta. You had Sean Maroney, Mary Boington, and Bill O'Toole for in studio stuff, and I had Ray Moffitt and Willie Sneed for all the things happening in the studio at WGN. But Shawnee really taught me how to shoot out in the field and get different angles and what have you. So I love Sean, and I admire him for his work ethic and his humor, because he can he can be the most inappropriate person at the most appropriate time. That's the best way I can describe Sean.